I found his dad.
I think Dad has made some excellent progress today.
Your dad, he's a fun guy, right?
And I love him so much, and I think he's the greatest dad in the world.
Welcome back to Working on the Dad Pod. I'm Alex. He is Ethan. Season 4, Episode 2. Tonight we are working on learning to love the chaos. This was inspired a little bit by last week. Just everything was chaos. There's so many extracurriculars. There's so much stuff going on personally, professionally, with our kids, that sometimes life can get really chaotic. I know I've got a story queued up for story time tonight that will be a nice little segue right into this main topic, because yet again in my life, chaos reigns supreme. But before we get into story time, this is just a reminder that we are on all the social media platforms. Hopefully, maybe trying to be a little more active on social media this season. We'll see how it goes, but make sure you subscribe on YouTube. That's the absolute best way to stay in touch with us, to support us. We're at Working on the Dad Pod on all of those platforms, and you can find us at workingonthedadpod.com, where we have links to everything. So with that, Ethan, in the chaos that is life, how are you?
Well, I'm definitely still learning to love the chaos. I can't say I'm there yet. And, you know, it was a bit of a chaotic week. When we last spoke, I told y'all that my mom was coming to town, and she did. That was great. Had a wonderful time. My mom got in Friday night. We had some good food, which is always great with my mom. My mom stays at the hotel that's like 60 yards away from our house. So on Saturday night, my two daughters invited themselves over to her hotel for a sleepover. So that was great. So my wife and I had the night to ourselves, which was ruined by just a really bad movie on Netflix that we hadn't even heard of, but the 90-second clip made it seem like it was going to be very funny. And then the only funny parts were in that 90-second clip. The movie is called The Breaker-Uppers. It's a New Zealand comedy, I guess, is what they were trying to go for. But it's these two women who run a service where they break up with people for you. So lots of costumes, lots of fake deaths. Anyway, the 90-second trailer is great. But that's all you need to watch.
I'll give the trailer a watch. I will take your word that that's the highlight. Always disappointing. Always disappointing when a movie does that.
And then, my mom's last day was Monday, and we so that was fun. We went to our favorite restaurant that we go to every time she's in town. And then the chaos really took off on Tuesday, where most of Monday night I didn't sleep well. I was very stuffed, kept waking up, woke up feeling pretty gross, coughing up a lot of mucus, blowing my nose constantly. It was my wife's and your birthday. So my wife was already off. So I just kind of decided I was going to take a sick day, except I saw that I had a very important work meeting to call into. So I said I would call into that from home. That 1 hour meeting ended up being 2 hours and 15 minutes. During that meeting was when the dryer repairman showed up. And then something else happened. And I saw an email that said that there was lice in the classroom. Then about an hour after that, when I finally had 20 minutes of rest that I really needed, there was a phone call from the school, and it was my older daughter's teacher. And he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I don't know, man. How am I doing?" Turned out she got the lice again. Ooh, I don't know what it is, but they love her hair. I tell her your hair is so beautiful that the lice just can't stay away.
Bugs are attracted to it.
Yeah, the bugs just love your hair so much. Luckily, she didn't have a lot. You know, by the time they called us, they said like they didn't see anything alive. They saw a dead bug and like 2 nits that they got rid of. So,
Yeah.
you know, I pick her up. My wife gets home. My wife does a really thorough check. I then do the lice shampoo with her in the shower. You know, this has become, you know, a whole
Got
routine for
process.
us now. Yeah.
You got to
And yeah, so then, you know, we got it. We got it all to the point where when yesterday morning, Wednesday, took her back to the daycare because she's been on spring break all week, but the before and after care kids get to stay all day at the daycare. Turns out the 3 kids that had lice all went to the same elementary school, my daughter being one of them. They checked her, they admitted her. It's great. We checked her again last night before going to my mother-in-law's house for the first night of Passover Seder. She was clear. Because she was clear, both girls are spent last night there and they're spending tonight there because they both don't have school now. We still have work. So we're just trying to, you know, be clear. But it was really tough because we thought, oh man, we finally get a break from the kids. And then of course she had to get lice. And we thought our break and, you know, we were talking about, okay, which day is better for you to stay home from work, which day is better from ours, because we're both in a non-telework situation, really. So, you know, funsies, bunsies. And that's the chaos of my week. Yours?
Yeah, I mean, quick aside about lice. We didn't cover everything that happened between seasons, but this reminded me of a moment when we as a family went to Disney World for Christmas. And my kids both did the Bippity Boppity Boutique. Anybody who's seen Cinderella can figure out what that is. My son got done up, his hair done up as a knight. My daughter got turned into a princess. And there's a moment there where they pull you aside and they have someone, you're in this room and there's a magical mirror where the fairy godmother guides you through everything. And then your human assistant comes through and shows you all the things they can do with your hair. And they're moving it this way and they're being kind of silly. And they walk out and I go, okay. And my wife goes, that was the slickest lice check I have ever seen. And I was like, that's so slick. I didn't even know that's what it was.
Oh, wow.
It was very clear that they make it into their script that they are just like going through and like, we could do your hair like this and we could do your hair. And if you can't see me visually and you're just listening, I'm doing my hands like a marionette puppet, essentially. And
smart.
Yeah. So shout out to Disney World. They just make everything magical. They figured out the most magical way to do a lice check. But in less magic, I want to touch on something you said about still really learning to love the chaos. It is a process. And I think as we go through this very topic, it's going to be as much of a therapy session and a little do as I say, not as I do, a little bit of how learning from our own mistakes over and over again. But for me, my wife, you know, this past week has been a little chaotic. We had, you know, a pretty busy Saturday. Sunday, we did a birthday party with the family for me. And then Monday morning, before I was up, before the kids were up, my wife drove to the airport for a 3-day work offsite. So she was out of town Monday until dinner time Wednesday, which obviously usually invites its own set of chaos. Now, unlike your setup, we're both don't have to be at work because we work from home, but we don't have to be at work before the kids have to be at school, either one of us. So we're usually both there, but it's a good enough, easy enough system that we can manage it with one parent. The morning and the day goes pretty fine, but then at bedtime in the evening, my daughter has Girl Scouts. Normally my wife would take my daughter to Girl Scouts and I'd stay back with my son. But I have to take her. I have to take him. And parents don't typically stay for the actual meeting. We just go in, listen to announcements, and hang out. Well, it happens to be at our church. Our church has a great parking lot. It has a basketball hoop. I brought a lot of stuff for me and my son to play. We hang out for a little bit, pick up my daughter. By this point, it's 6:30. We're 20 minutes from home. So we get home. I got a quick dinner to fix. As I'm starting to fix dinner, I look in my kid's room and I go, man, it's 10 till 7. We don't have a lot of time left in this day, and this room's a mess. So I say, hey guys, can you please clean up your room while I'm fixing dinner? That would be a huge help. That way it's done. It's out of the way. They're like, we don't want to. We'll do it later. Calmly, I said, okay. There isn't really a later. It's kind of dinner, and then it's probably going to be time for bed. If you choose not to clean it up now, it will affect your ability to get bedtime stories, bedtime songs. And then if you're still not ready for bed and have a clean room, there will be more consequences. Dear listener, there were more consequences because they did not make that choice. And it did not go very smoothly. My daughter called me a bunch of names. She called her brother a bunch of names because she decided that she would invest all of her time as a dutiful big sister, berating him, coaching him what to do, and then getting frustrated when the 4-year-old could not figure it out. And so there were some tears, mostly by her, a little bit by him. But I'm trying to talk to her about things and help her out with things. And at one point, I screamed at my son because he decided that he was just going to start chucking stuffed animals at my head. And like everybody at certain points lost their cool. And I walked out of there. And this is sort of a segue into our main topic here. And I walked out of there and I said, that was chaotic. I did 95% of the time, I was talking in a voice like I'm talking to you now. I was calm even when they were not. This is a very practiced skill. It does not come naturally to me. If somebody yells at me, I yell louder. That's my general default. I don't like being yelled at, and it doesn't care if they are 3 years old, 4, 5, 7, whatever.
Right.
And so I remained calm. And then I just got to a point where I'm like, progress has completely stalled. Stuff is not being cleaned up, and my daughter wants to argue about every little thing. And I'm starting to get frustrated, not because she's not getting it done, but because she's deciding to belittle and berate her brother. And I'm like, you are being a jerk. You are being a mean person. And like, I am not okay with that. And so I'm kind of like standing up for his honor. And, you know, I walked out of there and I said, okay, how can we control this chaos a little bit better? There's certain things we can't control. We can't control the fact that their room was a mess when we walked in the door. Okay. We can't control the fact that they are emotionally charged and making a bad choice, but I can control my emotions. And that is something I've worked on with my therapist quite often. And that's sort of my overarching starting thesis. It'll probably be my ending point here, but controlling ourselves when the things don't go to plan exactly how we want. I'm like, okay, we'll get in, we'll make dinner. They'll clean the room. They'll get ready for bed, read them stories, sing them songs. Good night. We're good. I'm walking out of that room 20, 25 minutes after I meant to, because everything became a dialogue. Everything became an argument, and everything didn't go to plan. And so, you know, and then I'm like, this is, you know, fantastic final day at the ripe age of 36, you know, finished with the flourish there.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel like you're nodding along. I will let you interject because I feel like, I mean, I know we've got it recorded on our YouTube channel, working on Dad Pod. You have had these moments yourself.
Yeah. And I will say again, I'm very much learning. The one thing, and I want to give credit to Erin Ryan from the Hysteria podcast, something that she always talks about her childhood in a way that you know, I'm not going to accuse her of lying, but it sounds like she was like too good of a kid. I don't fully believe it, but there is a lesson that she said that her father told her, and that is whoever's loudest loses. So she would be screaming at her dad, and he would just say, whoever's loudest loses, whoever's loudest loses. And it would just drive her insane because she kept wanting to yell and he was refusing. So sometimes I try to remember that, and I'm not always successful, but I have actually started saying that to my girls, saying whoever's loudest loses, and nobody's talking to you like that. And I try to do that for as long as I can, but eventually, you know, it sometimes gets beaten out of me. Especially when, you know, something becomes slightly violent. You know, that's mostly with my 3.5-year-old daughter. She's the one who will swing or kick. But quick aside, you know, she had her first soccer practice the other day and of the season, and she dribbled across the whole field with like perfect ball control, kicking the ball straight. And I said, maybe all that kicking she does on us is actually beneficial. I don't know. I like turned to my wife and said, maybe we should keep letting her kick us. I don't know. This is why I'm just gaming this out here. All right. Just gaming it out.
Listen, the kid that was beaning me with stuffed animals, he's got a pretty decent arm on the T-ball field. I'll say that. I don't know. Tiny sample size here, but I'm backing you up on that one.
Correlation. So, you know, that's a quick aside, but, you know, we are at the point with the younger one where you start taking stuff away, she eventually falls in line. And I'll take something away where I'll say, okay, like I am now taking this away. If I leave your room with it, it is taken away. You have until I leave your room with this item that you have deemed the most important thing in the world to do the thing I've asked you to do before it's too late. And that has kind of worked. With the older one, you know, there's a lot of stuff on the internet of memes of first child, second child. And usually the first child's the one that's very emotional, like a rule follower who's going to start to cry. The second child's the one who's going to break a bottle. Like, I definitely want my younger daughter in a bar fight with me. I definitely don't think my older daughter is gonna back me up at all. She'll be like, guys, use your inside voices. My younger daughter is ready to stab. That's what I want. Anyway, but she will, you know, she cries instantly, and you see it build up in her face. She's like, and I just say, hey, this is not something we cry about. And sometimes that works, but sometimes, you know, when I say, hey, we're not crying over the fact that you ate too many honey bunches of oats yesterday and I haven't had a chance to go to the store and buy more, and that you're having cornflakes today. We're not crying over that. We're not crying over food. Okay.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that cuts it off. Sometimes it just makes it worse. You know, it's kind of with her there. So that was a little bit of a rant, but ultimately I have been trying to go into every situation with the mantra, whoever's loudest loses. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, and I think I like that, because it is something my daughter, you know, my oldest is the one that will start, you know, at least in a verbal bar fight, so to speak.
Sure.
Like, she's the one that'll go, and my son will cower the moment somebody comes at him. And that's fine. But I think for me, it's just, I tell her quite often, nobody's talking to you like that, or you're the only one yelling here, right? Because she'll be like, you're yelling at me and mom's yelling at me. And I'm like, I'm talking to you like this. I'm not yelling. Your mom's not yelling. If your brother's yelling, it's because he's being a feral little child, but it is not because he is angry. You're the only one angrily yelling. Right. And that doesn't always work, because she has a tendency, and this is very specific, because I do think that it is generally good advice to remain calm. It is generally good advice, and I will stand by that even with my kids. It is good advice. But the whole, like, nobody's talking to you like that, Sometimes it works. Sometimes she just like bends reality to like, I'm going to argue that now.
Right.
You want to go, old man? I am now going to argue that you're yelling at me to the point that maybe I can actually get you to yell at me. And then
I was right the whole time.
I am right.
Yes.
And so I get, I think, I don't know where she gets it from, but I immediately go, you can't get me to yell.
Sure.
But I do think that keeping the mindset of like, I'm not going to yell, I'm going to be calm, and then thinking through the outcomes, right? Because a lot of these situations, we talk about plans. You've talked about like your morning routine when it's just you and your youngest doesn't want to get ready. She doesn't want to get out the door. And like you are frustrated about having to swipe into your office at a certain time, risk of punishment or loss of job. And she's not taking that seriously. She's not taking shit seriously. She's 3 and she's not not only is she not going to know that, maybe even if you told her, but it's like this separation between what you're actually like frustrated about. You're not frustrated that she does not have pants on. You're frustrated that the plan broke, right? And you being me or any dad out there, and like that's me. I wasn't frustrated that my kids were in their underwear wrestling 10 minutes after bedtime. I was frustrated because I wanted them to go to sleep. Partly because I wanted them to be well rested, because that would make tomorrow morning easier. I wanted to have the house to myself and just unwind and watch something on Netflix and pour myself a glass of scotch or whatever. And instead I was having to deal with that. But I think that's part of the issue. And there's actually been some research, and I did a little research beforehand, that like chaos can have negative effects on kids. That's not surprising. Any parental coach will tell you like kids need structure and order. But really the breakdown is not just that there's chaos, it's the parents' reaction to it. And so like if you're the one establishing the routine and you're sticking to your routine, but you're also like sticking to your consequences and staying even keeled when things go off the rails, that's like modeling the behavior that we want our kids to learn. And it's like, I want them to learn that the first time. We all do. I want to be like, this is the right thing. You should do this. And the fact that their dumb little brains do not develop fast enough to make what I think should be a one conversation journey into a multi-year journey.
Yes.
Is also what's frustrating me, because my plan is I tell you once and we're good. You're fixed that forever. But unfortunately,
my issue with that is, progress is not linear, but I want progress to be linear.
Right.
It drives me insane that we'll have, 6 good months where the problem got nipped in the bud, and then there's a massive regression, and it drives me crazy because, my wife will say, hey, she's 6, or hey, she's 3. I say, but she had this down when she was 5. So I don't really care that she's 6, because when she was 5, she was doing this perfectly. So what are we doing here? So it's tough. And it was funny. There were a few meltdowns this weekend from both kids at separate times.
Yeah.
And my mom is talking about how my older daughter, it's like sometimes she acts 16 and then she has a meltdown. And you're like, I forgot she was 6. And I said, yeah, sometimes you just got to remember that they're 6. And, it was interesting because the fact that my mom was there, I was definitely trying my best. I don't think I yelled once because I talk all this big game.
You want to be like, you taught me well. Yeah. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Talk this big game on the podcast about, we're the, no, I've said gentle parenting sucks, but I definitely said that.
Talk a big game on this podcast.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Sometimes I'm legitimately concerned.
I will say, so we've had 2 soccer practices already in my coaching, and you know, I turned to my mom because my mom had never watched me coach before. She's only watched me play. So, you know, we had our first water break, and there were these two other moms there whose kids weren't there the first week, and they said, "Wow, you're really good at this." And I just said, "Hey, I'm just trying to impress my mom." And they said, "Well, mom, he's impressed us." And unfortunately, my wife wasn't there to hear that because I want to be like, you should have seen all the other moms at soccer. They love me. But unfortunately, she'll never believe it. But I do think I did a good job keeping my cool and like looking like a good dad in front of my mom this week, which is that's really the point.
That's really what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the chaos, one of the biggest things to learn besides like keeping calm is how to pivot when the plan shifts. I've gotten miles better at this, and I still have so far to go. I think this kind of leans into when we've talked about like Bandit Healer. We did an episode on how we can be more like Bandit and like making things fun and how he's always playing with his kids. I have had some success, not always recently. Prepping for the show, I kind of got reminded that this is just a really solid strategy, but leaning into the fun. Like if I could time machine myself back to Monday, I'd be a whole year younger, but I would also do some things differently in that bedtime routine. And I would say, you know, once it got to a certain point, I think I find myself trying to square peg into a round hole quite a bit. Like my kids are I want them to get to bed on time for all the reasons I already mentioned. 2, I want them to put on their own pajamas because they know how to do it. And I want, when things are chaotic, I want the constant of them being able to dress themselves. I want them to be able to brush their own teeth. I want my daughter to be able to brush her own hair. I want to like have those things. And sometimes it gets really hard as that frustration builds to take a step back and have that moment of like, okay, here's what I would do. I would come up with some sort of game. My kids like this game, Beep Boop Robot, where they turn into robots and they are doing what you say and what you have programmed them to do. And it doesn't, like, things get stale, so you can't have one go-to. You got to have like a little repertoire that you use. But something like that, I would be like, I need 2 robots who can follow instructions perfectly. We're going to have a competition to see if you were programmed correctly. Something like that. Beep Boop robots, raise your right hand. Other right, you know, whatever. And then get them moving and going in certain directions. Beep Boop robot, put on pajamas. That kind of stuff. Like, and change the thing instead of put on your pajamas, you're going to lose your story. Put on your pajamas, you're going to lose your song. Put on your pajamas, blah, 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 blah. You know, or I think what I eventually got to is I am setting a 5-minute timer. If these things are not done, they will be done to you. Which was like, I will be as gentle as I can, but if your pajamas are not on, they will be put on you. If your teeth are not brushed, they will be brushed for you. And if your hair is not brushed, which is the big one to get my daughter going, it will be brushed for you because she gets a lot of tangles in her hair and she doesn't like anybody else dealing with them. So that's where the thing that I'm always trying to like find that bandit mode a little bit. You know, this isn't the Bandit Healer podcast, but find that bandit healer mode a little bit where you can just say, okay, how can I flip this on its head? Pick the lesson, right? Because I'm like, the thing I most want to accomplish is getting them to bed on time. If that means sacrificing the pajamas and the self-service of the brushing teeth and the like, whatever, fine. Not every single time the plan goes off the tracks. Not every mess has to be a lesson. And that is always tough for me because I think it's the same thing of like, you've done this before. Why are you not repeating it exactly how you did it when you were 5, when you were 4?
Right.
You've been doing this for years. I know you know how. Come on.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You know, I will be honest. I don't have much else. It's the chaos is tough. Sometimes you get Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades out of it, and sometimes you get us, you know.
And I think, I
Nothing?
just
No, nothing. Not a Greek mythology guy.
I am, but I'm not gonna I don't know that I want to dive in. It's too late to dive into Greek mythology and get my puns on.
Sure. There you go.
But yeah, I think the big moral here is leaning in a little bit more to those moments, not just finding it, but understanding that that's actually where the connection can come. When things are a little chaotic, and like flipping it on its head, seeing it less as as an obstacle and more as an opportunity to connect and have fun. And I think it's something, like I said, I have tried it. It works. It is also really hard to remember when you are frustrated that you should be silly.
Yeah.
Because it very much goes against the grain, the fibers of my being, to be a goofball when I've told you 6 times what I need from you.
I will say there is one thing I thought of over in the off season when showers were getting really out of hand. I bought a shower speaker, and we've just turned showers into dance parties, and that has made most showers a lot more, functional. They're not all perfect.
Side here that when showers were getting out of hand, for some reason my mind went to like egg prices and gas prices. I was like, showers?
Yeah.
Like showers were getting like the economy in this economy?
Right. Yeah.
I get where you are. It took me a long time to get
there. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, no, the showers, if you remember from last season.
Personally, yes.
Yeah, they were getting pretty intense, lots of yelling, lots of frustrations, but a Bluetooth shower speaker with a lot of K-pop Demon Hunters, Taylor Swift, a few other funsies in there, the Bluey dance mode episode song. Just sometimes I don't always remember to put it on, but it works. Girls love it, and sometimes and even if they're still out of hand, I'm just listening to music, and I can tell them, hey, I'm trying to listen to this, so they might get a little quieter out of respect for the song, but it allows me to at least just get through the business of the shower. So
yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I think music can be fun. For our kids, it can be distracting because I'll start a song and then they will start making requests because it's usually on their Alexa, and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, just keeping it fun. Like, those are the kind of, for anybody that's seen Inside Out 2, like some core memory stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember showering with my dad to music he liked to listen to. What?
Yeah.
Don't say it like that.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Yeah. I will say I have had to teach my older daughter, and I keep saying this as nicely as possible. Singing louder doesn't mean you're singing well. I just want you to know that the louder you sing doesn't mean it's the better you sing. Sometimes
whoever sings loudest loses.
Yes, sometimes we can sing softer and work on them harmonies, all right? Like, we don't need to be as loud as possible, all right?
Sometimes you can just snap and sway,
Yeah.
Sometimes
keep it 90 degrees.
That's the key of the song. You're just just vibing in the background.
Yeah.
That's what you got.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be Freddie Mercury over here.
No.
I'm not going to hit that falsetto. I'm just going to sway in the background.
Yeah. And look, I'm not saying get the lyrics right. God knows I can't. But just you don't need to be that loud. Just ears can break, and I don't want you breaking mine. All right.
Speaking of ears breaking,
sure.
We wanna work on the dad books. Work on the dad a little bit.
Yeah, my ears broke listening to that pun, but yeah, I do. So I do a lot of listening. I can't say I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid listener. I
Sure.
listened to last year 20 audiobooks and or graphic audio productions, the full cast and that fun stuff. And I do most of my listening on the treadmill or when I'm running, if I'm at home and I'm running outside. And it has been therapy for me because my therapist retired, so I actually haven't had therapy in quite a while. But those moments of just me and listening to audiobooks or graphic audio productions has been great. Since you're the one who recommended it to me and I'm behind, I'll let you talk about Red Rising. But one thing I've really gotten into is quick aside, the fact that Disney doesn't have just a list out there is really annoying. And you have to rely on the nerds on Reddit. But I'm trying to listen to all of the canon Star Wars books, because there's a lot out there. A lot of fans
why Disney doesn't want to have that.
Well, the thing is, the general rule of thumb is that when Disney bought Star Wars in 2014, every book published after that was considered canon. But they have, in the old expanded universe, which is now referred to as the Star Wars canon and Star Wars legends, some of the legends they have canonized, but they don't list that. But you read it or you listen to it in a non-canon book, but then you happen to see that same thing happen in one of the shows, excuse me, or movies. I'm still not entirely over my cold. But so what's really nice with the Star Wars stuff is some of the stories are about characters I've seen on either TV and movies. So the visualization when I'm running is a lot easier because I know what these people look like.
Yeah, I just started. The reason that they're not listing that out is because they don't want to be beholden to any one thing, so that they can pull and leverage different parts of that IP as they see fit. And if they say something's canon or not canon today, then it gets into because there are much bigger nerds than us that have podcasts entirely devoted to this subject matter that would know on page 382, line 4, word 6.
Yeah.
That they would.
Oh, I know that one.
They would be like, you said this and you said this was canon and now you're showing this in a movie, and nobody needs. Well, maybe they could need that, but they're a smart. This is why they're a multi-billion-dollar company and we're not.
Correct.
Because of a lot of things, but including that.
Yes, exactly, and that makes total sense. It'd be nice because I want some structure to bring it back to the lack of chaos, but I just want a plan with regard to my audiobooks,
Yeah.
And so today I actually started Master and Apprentice, which is a Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi storyline right before Phantom Menace. So that's just kind of where you are on the timeline. I got through the first 5 chapters because even though I was sick, I had a pretty clear empty end of the workday. So I decided that I just wanted to jog. Ended up doing the full hour. I did 7 miles and I didn't die. Obviously, I'm here recording, but it was nice to get some, sweat out some of the sick, and to do that, listening to start a new book, but not entirely a new book because it's characters I like. And actually, I recommended to you, these are not canon, but the Dark Bane trilogy, same narrator in Master and Apprentice. So I was nice to be like, oh, I like that voice. Good.
Yeah.
So
I need to do another search. I did not find them at my local library when I was looking for the audiobooks, but I have gotten, much more into audiobooks, but also printed books. I do a lot of renting from the library. where I am, but haven't gotten into the Star Wars stuff. Although I think, like you said, I am one of those people that I think I spent way too long not reading because I felt like I had to read what, the classics, or I had to like read what I was assigned to read in high school that I hated reading when I was in high school, and like just felt like I was doing rote memorization for a task. I was like, I need to go back as just a reader and like try to enjoy this, or some of the things that maybe could have been assigned and were on the reading list, but you had options, that kind of stuff. And I shockingly maybe just didn't like the content of the classics. Like maybe that's not my speed, and that's okay. So you alluded to it. I frankly just got in on Book Talk, and for those of you that don't know what Book Talk is, it's TikTok but books. I mean, it's the TikTok books section. It's where your algorithm turns into a lot of reading stuff. And I started just diving through there, and that led me to anybody who's seen social media about books. People are going to be like, these are the top 5 books you should read. And every single one of those lists will include a book by Pierce Brown called Red Rising and the Red Rising saga. And so I was like, hey, this is literally the one that everybody is saying. So I picked that up. If you are into sci-fi, little dystopian, it's really good. Do I think it's worth the hype? Yes, personally, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. I would highly recommend it. It's a 6-part series now. There is a 7th and final book. It's coming out maybe later this year, hopefully, but it's very good. It's about a future world in which people, and I'll try not to give too much away, but where humans have colonized most, if not all, of the solar system, and they are separated into a sort of different color-based class system. There's a little bit of rebellion, there's a little bit of war, there's a little bit of love, there's a little bit of everything in there. So that's a great series. But I have been a big fan of listening to the books, but also, if I can line it up, borrowing the audiobook and borrowing the printed version, because I do love sitting on my Kindle and like just reading the printed version, or the digital, but actually reading the words from time to time. But like you, I'm a big audiobook while I'm at the gym guy, or audiobook while I'm doing the dishes after the kids have gone to bed, kind of thing. I love doing. I mean, I was doing it mowing the lawn, audiobook while mowing the lawn kind of guy. But I finished all 6 of the Red Rising books, and so I started in on the book series that was mentioned the second most times on Book Talk, which is the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And so
I heard about that.
I'm on book 5 of that one. That one is a series where a man in Seattle is with his girlfriend's cat, and the world gets taken over by aliens, and everybody gets sent into a dungeon, and the dungeon is like a role-playing game that is broadcast throughout the universe. It is wild, it is funny, and it has a lot of cursing. The cat is named Princess Donut.
Sure.
Fantastic cat, fantastic book series. I like that one a lot too. It's a obviously dystopian, some like interplanetary stuff, some similar themes to Red Rising, but this one is a lot goofier.
Cool. I've heard good things.
But still emotional heartstrings. And then because my library did not have book 5 as an audiobook, I am just reading that in print. And I have actually done the thing, actually book 4 and book 5, I have mixed where I have an audiobook going while I have a print book going. It's slowed down my print pace, but I do have audiobooks going. One I listened to, a little nonfiction, was The Club, which is the story of how the English Premier League became the richest soccer league in the world. And then now I am reading Dark Matter, which was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, a series on Apple TV, but was a book before that. And it is about a man who gets kidnapped and transported to an alternate reality, kind of a multiversal story, somehow still more grounded than Red Rising and Dungeon Crawler Carl. Sure. There's no interplanetary chaos, much more
Nice.
sort of localized personal story. That one's also good. I'm almost done with that one. So kind of been, I want to say all over the place, but I've mostly been just doing what Book Talk recommended.
Yeah, very cool. I am pretty much exclusively fiction, and then at the moment, because I like the escape, and
I do too. And I think if the club had not been so highly, like most of the, I feel like a lot of the college football writers, we listen to their podcasts, and different people have recommended the club, and it just happened to come
was looking for it as an
Spotify feed. Yeah. And so I was just like, and I have Spotify Premium, and so I get some audiobooks there, and it came across my Spotify feed, and I said, okay, let's give it a go. And it's not as like gripping. I can't turn this down. Sure. But I'm like, okay, it is fairly interesting, and it's got good stories. And I think it's one of those that if you're into sports, you're into media rights, you're into transactions, like there's a lot of big picture stuff that I think it definitely can be interesting for someone. I'm not a big Premier League fan. I'll watch a game every now and then, but this isn't like, oh, I'm some giant Premier League fan. I still find the book pretty interesting. So.
Yeah, it wasn't on my Libby when I last searched for it, but I definitely want to listen to it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode. Hopefully you have learned from our chaos, both in the episode and in our life.
Sure.
But we thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Ethan, you'll be here next week?
I should be, yes.
All right, sounds good. Then we'll be back next week with another fresh episode. We look forward to seeing you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with a friend.
Yeah, and thank you.